Does material matter? That's the $1 million question. What material are you fitting your patients with? Are they happy with the material? Are they experiencing the best comfort, the best vision? What does that water content look like when it comes to the material? Does it matter? Friends and family, we have some experts today on Grand Rounds with Eye Care Experts. It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. Let's go. This is a Defocus Media production.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. Super excited to be here because we're talking about a topic that I need some training on. I'm a little lost in the sauce when it comes to materials and what I should do for my patients. I want to make sure I have the right tools and resources and the right knowledge to be able to give my patients the right solutions so they can elevate their lifestyles. And today we have an all-star lineup, an expert lineup, an expert panel that's really going to help us get through this. Friends and family, I'd like to welcome my colleagues to begin with, Dr. Aaron Ruff. How are you doing today, Dr. Aaron?
I'm good. How are you, Daryl?
I'm doing well. It's always
Thanks
a pleasure to see you and always a pleasure to learn from you as well. Thank you so much. And I also have, this guy, he's been in the eye care industry for a while, and he does so much for eye care, whether it's in that exam lane or with legislation. We were just having a great conversation prior to jumping on. And I just want to welcome my friend, my colleague, Dr. Shane Kanar. How are you doing today, Dr. Kanar, Dr. Shane?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Hey, likewise, my friend. And then we have the one and only. We always bring on a student because we feel like it's very important to give back to the eye care community. As optometry students, you guys are the future, and that's why we do this. That's why we partner with Johnson & Johnson to bring you the latest and greatest in technology, but most importantly, how to communicate with patients, but really look at a case holistically. And friends and family, I'd like to welcome our student today, Jacqueline Chabarno. Nobody messed it up, did I, Jacqueline? We were laughing prior to this. I was telling you, if I mess it up, I apologize. You can smack me next time you see me in person. But Jacqueline, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. And I must say, a lot of folks have been speaking highly of you, Jacqueline. So we're super excited to experience your knowledge. And we can't wait for you to bestow all that wisdom and all that great knowledge that you have so that we can prescribe better in the exam lane. So just to give everyone an overview of what this show looks like, what this Grand Rounds looks like, Dr. Aaron Ruff really takes the conversation over with Jacqueline, and they really socialize a case, break it down from top to bottom, and then we have our expert come on, Dr. Kanar, and he really just dives deep and gives his point of view from practicing inside of that exam lane day in and day out with practice management tips and little tricks that he may know to make life easier for you, but also just make sure that patient journey is complete. And then at the end, we give away some gift cards, $100 Amazon gift cards. 3 of those babies will go out today. But thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. We're going to go ahead and get this party started. Dr. Aaron, it's all on you, my friend. Shane and I are out of here.
All right. See you in a little bit. Hey, Jacqueline.
Hello.
All right, we're going to get started with the case here. So pretend we're just sitting in the clinic talking about our patient that's coming in.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Johnson & Johnson, for sponsoring tonight and kind of allowing us to have this conversation. So you already know us. So as Daryl alluded to, tonight we're going to talk about soft contact lens materials. And this is something that comes up frequently, actually, when I'm working with students and patients in the clinic. And I think there's some misconceptions about what we know about materials and what we don't, or what materials might do or not do. And so hopefully this case can kind of clarify some of that information for everyone who's listening in. So here's our patient. We've got a 23-year-old female who's coming in saying she really likes her soft contact lenses, but she just really can't afford them anymore. She's wearing a premium toric daily disposable contact lens. She loves the vision. She loves the comfort, but she's in her second year of grad school and money is tight. So I'm sure you can relate. We can all relate. We've all been there. Um, and she's always had a history of really good compliance with the contact lenses, but she's found in the last couple of months, she's sort of maybe been wearing a pair more than one day, finding a case to put it in to sort of stretch out the life of the lenses, because again, she really likes them, but she doesn't have the cash flow that maybe she did in the past to kind of afford them. So clinically, not a whole lot to say or see here. She's a mild myope. She's got a moderate amount of astigmatism. So she definitely needs to be in a toric lens. We know with the daily disposable lens, if it has astigmatic parameters, that is going to make it more expensive. And clinically, her ocular health looks really good. I don't really see signs of dryness, no signs of really any meibomian gland disease. The ocular surface looks really good. So you come back to the trial, kind of trying to find something else that you could give this patient that has a lower price point, and you're kind of looking through your price list. You know that she's in the silicone hydrogel daily disposable, and so you start looking at SiHy options first, because for a lot of people, I think SiHy seems like it's the best technology. It's the most current, updated technology. But you start to find that the only SiHy options that are less expensive than what she has are not daily disposables. They're monthly or 2-week replacement. And the only daily disposable options kind of seem like maybe older brands, or maybe not the most current daily disposable that's come out. And they also happen to be a hydrogel material. And so again, in your brain, you're kind of like, should I keep her in the material or should I keep her in the replacement schedule? Sort of what's more important? And maybe most importantly, is it going to be a detriment to her health to put her in a hydrogel material? Or is, what we have available to us in hydrogels adequate for her health? So those are all the things that I feel like when we have this type of patient that, I'm thinking about, and that a lot of times a student will come back and sort of ask me about. So let me ask you, if I would ask you what the difference between a SiHy and a hydrogel material is, in like 1 or 2 sentences, what do you think like the big headline would be?
Yeah, for sure. I think with silicone hydrogel, the first thing, like the first word that comes to my mind is just oxygen. So when we're prescribing SiHy, it's really reducing any sort of complications with hypoxia-related issues in the eye.
Yeah.
But of course, every like pro has its con. So more silicone means maybe a little bit more modulus, maybe affecting like the wettability and then potentially the comfort of the lens as well.
Yeah, those are really good points, and that kind of summarizes the true difference between a hydrogel material and a silicone hydrogel material. So very generally, the main difference between a SiHy and hydrogel is oxygen permeability, and a silicone hydrogel has sort of exponentially higher DK or DK over T than a hydrogel. And the reason for that is a hydrogel can sort of optimize oxygen permeability by increasing water content. In the hydrogel material, water has a higher DK than the plastic that makes up the hydrogel. But in the silicone hydrogel material, silicone actually has a higher DK than water. And so we can optimize oxygen permeability in a SiHy by increasing the plastic, the silicone, and therefore we don't have to have sort of like a 90% water content lens. Having that high of a water content is actually not going to be good for the lens. It's going to cause a lot of evaporation. So again, that's sort of the main difference is silicone allows the hydrogel material to have a much higher oxygen permeability. But like you said, that also means there's sort of more plastic in it. So very generally, a SiHy tends to have a higher modulus, meaning it's sort of stiffer than a hydrogel. And historically, there's been some other kind of issues with SiHys. But I want to kind of go back and kind of go on a history lesson here. When you see this next question, what's sort of your gut instinct? Do you think SiHys are healthier than hydrogel lenses? Knowing what we know about oxygen permeability, what's your kind of like feeling on that?
I think my gut instinct is to say yes in terms of oxygen related complications, but obviously there's always a bigger picture to that.
Yeah, definitely. If we're talking about only oxygen permeability, then yeah, SiHys are better in the sense that they let the most oxygen through. But if we go back to kind of thinking about when SiHys were actually released, so when SiHys were starting to be developed and actually FDA approved and cleared and sold on the market in the late 90s and early 2000s, that was a very different time in the contact lens world. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, we were really interested in finding contact lenses that we could safely sleep in and sleep overnight in. And if you think about that, it makes a lot of sense that we were interested in a material that allowed sort of the maximum amount of oxygen to the eye. That's what a SiHy brought. And at the time, we kind of thought if we eliminated hypoxia related complications associated with contact lens wear, then our patients could sleep in lenses all the time. And also, they wouldn't have complications like inflammation or even infections. So, a lot of these materials were approved for extended wear, continuous wear. You might remember lenses that were even like advertised that you could sleep in them overnight for weeks at a time, which kind of seems crazy now because of what we know now about those lenses. And that is that the introduction of silicone hydrogel lenses really didn't change the incidence of things like inflammation in the eye and specifically infection in the eye. So I have a study cited here from 2008 about the incidence of microbial keratitis, which is sort of the most feared contact lens complication when we talk about wearing contact lenses. That's the one thing you never want to see in your chair is microbial keratitis. And you can see here, they compared incidence of microbial keratitis in daily wear of hydrogel and silicone hydrogel, and also in extended wear, so overnight wear of hydrogel and silicone hydrogel. And you can see that wearing a SiHy lens did not appear to protect you from risk associated with microbial keratitis. And the conclusion of a lot of that research around that time was sort of, yeah, these lenses are going to reduce hypoxic complications, and they certainly do, but they aren't necessarily going to reduce risk of things like inflammatory events and microbial keratitis. So if we're asking the question, is a silicone hydrogel healthier for my patient than a hydrogel lens? The answer is probably no, especially when we consider that the hydrogel materials on the market today in any modern lens that you would prescribe have enough oxygen permeability to keep the cornea healthy, especially if the patient's wearing them not overnight and on a daily wear basis. So that was a long way to say, yes, SiHys are going to reduce hypoxic complications, but they're not really going to put a dent in things like corneal infiltrative events and microbial keratitis. So as long as your patient's compliant, we don't really have to worry about the material when it comes to those things. What do you think about replacement schedule here? Do you think there's benefit of one over the other?
In terms of daily disposables?
Yeah, like daily disposable compared to monthly or 2-week. A lot of SiHys are still available in a monthly or 2-week lens.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be cheaper for her.
Yeah, I tend to typically like the daily lenses myself. I like to prescribe those just because it's just easier for patients and hopefully reducing any risk of overwearing or having any sort of issues with just like having to clean the lens and all of that. So I think dailies are usually my go-to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the patient actually said that too, that she would prefer. It's really hard to take a daily disposable wear and put them in a monthly. All of a sudden, they seem like their whole life is very inconvenienced. I know I wouldn't want to go back to monthly replacement now that I wear a daily. So, yeah, a hydrogel daily disposable can sometimes be a nice kind of in between, especially if you're considering cost, to kind of even that out a little bit. And it is important to note that daily disposable wear has been shown to be healthier than regular replacement. There are less complications associated with patients who are wearing a daily disposable compared to a monthly or a 2-week replacement lens. So if health is a concern, daily disposable wear is definitely the way to go. What about comfort? I think I hear a lot from students like SiHy is the newest, latest technology, but is it more comfortable?
Not necessarily. I feel like that's kind of where SiHy maybe doesn't have so much of a leg up because of that modulus like we talked about before, it just can cause actually a little bit more discomfort potentially for the patient.
Yeah, definitely. We always say with the SiHy that the modulus is higher, so it's more uncomfortable. That's a very general statement. I think most manufacturers, if they have a SiHy material, they know that. And so they're, doing things to combat that. But I really think that a good take home message is that oxygen permeability is not going to influence comfort. I think that's a misconception amongst eye care providers. Our patients don't feel more comfortable the more oxygen or the less oxygen that gets to their eyes. If they did, then we would never really see hypoxic, or we wouldn't see as many hypoxic complications. Things like edge design, coefficient of friction, evaporation rates, the specific type of lubrication system that the lens is going to be manufactured with are going to have much bigger influences on comfort. Your patient doesn't know if they have a super high DK or a medium DK lens. So again, another misconception that just because a daily disposable has a SiHy material, it's going to be more comfortable. Not necessarily. So I think we've kind of debunked that material influences comfort, and that a modern hydrogel is unhealthy compared to a modern silicone hydrogel. So now let's bring in Dr. Shane Kanar and kind of have him join our conversation and talk with us about kind of how he considers these factors when trying to keep patients satisfied and in a lens that's accessible for them. Oh, I can't hear Shane. Can you hear Shane?
You guys got me now?
I got you now. Yeah.
That was a great job presenting the case and a great job, I think, highlighting things. Let's just step back and look at everything. And first, let's think about the fact that contact lenses are medical devices. So we can equate that to whether it be a joint replacement or a pharmaceutical agent. They're FDA regulated for a reason. And we're trained to be optometric physicians or optometrists in the way that we know how to look at all the components of a patient and make what would be the best decision or give them options for the best decisions. And I think you brought up so many key points I look at when I think about a patient. You're right. One of the best things that's happened to contact lens wear is we definitely see extended wear drop off. Not saying it's non-existent, but we're seeing less of it than we used to see. And I think your first slide was great in the fact that it highlighted the patient and what you were finding in clinic. And I think sometimes we forget about that when we're prescribing contact lenses. If a patient comes in and they have an internal hordeolum, you're going to select an antibiotic. But if that patient is immunocompromised and has a history of recurrent hordeolums and has just fought a sinusitis and they're allergic to sulfa drugs, you're going to select a different antibiotic because you look at the presentation of the patient. Same thing is happening here. This is a relatively healthy patient. There's probably several contact lens options that are available. You talked about replacement schedule. I think that's key. We do a lot of clinical research in my practice. One thing I found out years ago, it was interesting. You could take a patient wearing a commercially available contact, put them in a study where you're really controlling their replacement schedule tightly, and they would tell you about the improved comfort. So wearing a lens the way that lens is designed to be worn probably does as much, if not more, for comfort than anything else.
That's a really great point. Yeah.
So now we come to SiHy versus hydrogel. When you talk about DK, which is really more relevant than DK over T, but DK, how much is enough? And there's a limit to the tear film. It's based on your modality, but you can only fill a cup up so much. You can only get so much oxygen to the cornea because you have tear film and all these other factors in the way. So we want to get to the appropriate threshold for our patients. There is not a clinical study that I'm aware of that correlates comfort and oxygen permeability. They're two unrelated issues that we've kind of blurred together in our mind. So that brings us all the way back to moist. And that lens is a workhorse in my practice for a variety of reasons. I'm here in the Midwest, but think of it like trucks, right? You can buy really expensive trucks and all sorts of trucks, but a Ford is the workhorse and it provides a lot for you. Moist provides comfort, clarity, and vision for our patients. We have to screen our patients through our clinical exam to know the ones that it won't work for. But then we also have to think about our patients and cost, and we have to have open dialogue. Some people want to buy the best lens no matter what, and we present that option. Some people are buying contacts for themselves and their spouse and their 3 kids. Cost can truly be an issue. And my most important thing is put them in a lens that they can afford and they'll change like they're supposed to. Back to what we talked about, compliance. Moist gives us that time after time after time. It has adequate oxygen permeability. It has a great edge design. It has wonderful optics. And it allows our patients that daily contact lens experience. I also think that we need to think about GPC. You know, we see less of that than we used to because of the declining modulus. But when you look at it, modulus and denatured protein on the front surface of the lens are what cause it. I will tell you often in my patients who have early Claire or GPC, I'll make the move to moist from a silicone hydrogel, and we see improved comfort by combining that with therapeutic agents. So I think you're making exactly the right choice with this patient. First, you're keeping them in a single-use modality because it's hard to go backwards, improve comfort study after study, and you know compliance is better. You are looking at making a clinical assessment and making a decision based on the things for that patient and saying, you don't have SPK, we're not fighting dry eye, you're not, all these issues that we're supposed to review and make the determination. And then you're putting in the lens in a patient, the contact on a patient that not only provides a wonderful experience, it's going to provide the highest level of patient care and really develop the reputation for your practice that you want. So moist can be overlooked at times because we get caught up in the newest, shiniest object, but it just keeps working time and time again for our patients.
Yeah, those are really great points. So he's referring to AccuView One Day Moist, which is a hydrogel material that, yeah, it's been around for a while, but it's a great, I kind of consider it like an entry-level lens for my patients as far as cost goes. But, you know, it's available in sphere toric and multifocal. Again, it's at a great price point. It's comfortable and parameters are really great on it. So another thing, you know, a lot of these, maybe not the newest lenses, but maybe like a hydrogel daily option, been around longer. So parameter availability is going to be more, you know, a wider range depending on what your patient's refractive area is. And I loved your point about GPC, because you're right. We see it less, but we still see it. And it's important to keep in mind that material type, both replacement schedule and material type, in order to kind of prevent that. And so to know what lenses you have available to you that aren't a silicone material for those patients, as we're approaching spring and allergies and all of this, it's sort of a good reminder to kind of keep those products in your back pocket to know how to combat that.
You know, a couple of great call outs. First, to me, yes, we think of everything in the one day modality anymore. So I say one day moist versus one day moist, and to call that out, I apologize for that mistake.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Second of all, we do have patients who are still in planned replacement, and they struggle during allergy season in the Midwest. Don't think that you can only have one modality for your patients, because there are other options that are available for our patients all the time. And the last thing I'd like to say is keeping the highest possible patient experience at the top of your mind is the most important thing that we can do. And all this conversation is geared to that.
Awesome. Cool. I wonder if Daryl has something to say, if he has thoughts. He's floating around in the background somewhere.
Now, you know, I always have something to say.
I know. I love
Give
hearing
me the
what
opportunity, right? All great information. And I really love how you really broke down the difference between hydrogel and, you know, silicone hydrogel, because once you get out and start practicing, sometimes that kind of goes away, and you just start prescribing and giving that patient to someone that mentioned earlier, whatever the newest product that's out there, right? Because it tends to get better and better every single time they drop a new lens. But, you know, to Dr. Kennard's point, there are different seasons that you could use different modalities. I have patients that, you know, they don't always want to spend as much on a daily option. So through the year, they will wear monthlies primarily. But when it comes around springtime, like now, they're wearing dailies because they don't want to get out of their contacts. They do not want to wear glasses. So they pivot to the dailies. But they do perfectly okay in their monthlies. They're wearing them as prescribed. They're tossing them out. They're cleaning them. It's just during that time of the year they prefer to have dailies, right? So I think that was a fantastic call out. The other thing that I love that was mentioned was that we're optometric physicians. I hope all the students, all the new graduates, all the seasoned doctors that are listening to this really uh, let that resonate within them, simply because there some of the eye care industry that's outside of optometry is trying to take that title away from us as physicians. So it's very important to realize that contacts are medical devices. Do not take it lightly. Make sure you are prescribing the right solution for that patient that's sitting in front of you. That way we can all continue to be called doctors and be able to prescribe and be able to be known as physicians, because when those titles are taken away, that impacts our insurance, our insurance panels, what we get paid, and things of that nature. So it's very important to make sure that you know that you are physicians and you need to act like a physician, right? And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, which was mentioned, and I'd love to socialize this with everyone on the call, is the patient journey. And in particular, with the patient journey, is really the cost factor, right? Because think about it, all these new graduates, or all these optometry students that are about to get out, they're probably nervous as hell to prescribe a product that is a premium product. How do you combat that conversation in that exam lane? And what's your mindset whenever you go into that exam lane with the patient? Because a new grad coming out is just probably thinking, I need to monitor their pockets or their pocketbook and give them the cheapest solution. And even though it may not be the best solution. So how do you guys navigate that conversation?
Yeah, I like to not assume a patient can or can't afford one or the other. I'll often maybe offer two options to patients and let them take that home and try them. I found, kind of piggybacking on that previous point too that you made, kind of protecting our profession and what we do, that provides such a great service to our patients to give them two options. That's something that an online retailer is not going to do for them, and show them that you're recognizing their unique visual needs and maybe preferences. So yeah, kind of giving them two options, breaking down things like rebates, insurance coverage, and sometimes a premium product may seem out of reach. And once they get it home and test drive it, they realize that it provides a benefit that is something they do want to invest in. So sometimes it's nice to let them make that decision for themselves.
Yeah, I love that.
I think you're spot on. And, if any point in time somebody had said to me, a cup of coffee might be worth $6, I would have never even begin to dream of that. But then we're exposed to it and we realize there's a difference in coffee. And I'm not trying to simplify what we do, but we need to let patients actually see the benefits. When we talk about them in the exam room, it gets very difficult for them to understand necessarily everything we're saying. So if we let them see the benefits, if we provide that option, I also think it's very important to keep open and honest dialogue with my patients, right? If you're seeing that parent with 4 kids I just mentioned starting to recoil at the price, our job is to find the best option that they can afford. No different than your physician tries to find an antibiotic that's covered by your plan that you can afford. Don't make them feel threatened or this is your only option. Say this is the best option and go from there. So I think those things are spot on.
I love it. I love it. And something, and I love the comments that are being put in the chat here. I mean, take a look at this. Patients need to feel comfortable opening up to us about financial barriers too, right? We got to make that conversation comfortable for the patient to be able to speak to us and speak their truth as well, right? Yes, we would have laughed in their face at a $6 cup of coffee, but now it's the norm, right? And patients always be at the heart of decisions, and everyone's saying true and agree. So I mean, we're all on the same page. Another good way to take care of this situation is let the patients try one of each of the lens. You may have an AccuView One Day Moist in one eye and an AccuView Max in the other eye, and let them exam or feel that while they're in the exam lane. And when they go out to optical and before they leave, they can make that decision. Me personally, I like to keep all my patients held to the practice. So I want them to make that decision before they leave. And that's a great opportunity while they're looking at glasses to say, you know what, I do like this premium design. It is tremendously better than what I had before. Or it could be the hydrogel is a better option, a better fit, better comfort for them as well. But if they experience it firsthand, then at least they can make that educated decision in regards to the amount of money that they're spending as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I will say, because you will see planned replacement wear still.
Yeah.
Once they've been an established, if we don't see a reason to change that planned replacement, we will give them a 5-day supply of either moist or 1-day Oasis, whichever is clinically appropriate or we think is best for the patient. Let them order, but let them have that 5-day supply. And you'll be amazed how many patients come back the next year and say, hey, you gave me that trial. Let me do that. So you capture the patient, you get an order at the same time, you give them that exposure.
I love it, man. You got to plant that seed. And I think that was the topic of last or a couple of weeks ago conversation, planting that seed, whether it's for the next exam the following year, or those patients coming back, a couple of weeks later saying, you know what, I need to go back to that Max lens. That thing just it felt so good. And I was being cheap that day, Dr. Glover, but I need the real deal, So sometimes you got to plant that seed, baby. That's all it's about, right?
Yep.
It creates value in our profession.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the deal, right? And Jacqueline, these are things you have to think about when you're in the exam lane. I mean, when you're in that exam lane, the education you get in school is fantastic, but you're thinking so much. You got to think about insurance. You got to think about patient flow. You got to think about the products that you're providing that patient. You got to think about so many different things, but the more and more you can watch these grand rounds and find a mentor and have fantastic professors like Dr. Aaron and have these amazing physicians like Dr. Shinar, the easier it's going to be in the exam lane. But just make sure you do this as much as you can, because it's going to help guide you in the right direction. Everyone's loving this. They're saying give some samples. People like options. 2 sets of trials. Again, for me, I like to keep them held to the practice. So I want to get that annual supply before they leave. But what I was going to get at earlier was, if you don't show your patient what the latest and greatest technology is, you may lose that patient, because that patient may go down the street and that doctor's going to be the hero. They're going to say, Dr. Glover didn't show me this product. He didn't tell me about this product. And they'll no longer come back to you. So it's very important to make sure that you always show the latest and greatest, or at least plant that seed and have that conversation. All right, my colleagues, any last words, any wonderful words of wisdom?
No, I think it's probably time for the raffle.
All righty. Well, Janet, thank you for talking about plant that seed. And I agree. I think it is time for the raffle. Can we get a drum roll? I got to figure out a drum roll, like,
I know.
Audio thing. I'm pretty sure
try something. I don't want to.
I probably just got to play around and find it, right? But all righty. So let's see, who do we have here? All right. Drum roll. All right. So we have Dalen Wynn, Ejum Ozodogwi, and Abby Damanio. You are the 3 winners. You will get an email from myself or my fabulous team member, Sam, within the next 24 to 48 hours. We will send it to you via email. I want to thank everyone today for being a part of this amazing show. Dr. Aaron, you continue to just blow my mind with the topic that you bring and just the energy that you bring. Jacqueline, you're a rock star. Can't wait to see how you lead this profession. So continue the great work. And Dr. Kennard, man, I mean, you just know you're kind of like the OG, man. You've been doing this for a while. You can put us on the game, and we just appreciate everything that you do. And most importantly, we want to give a shout out to our partners, our sponsors, Johnson & Johnson. Without you, we cannot make this happen. Defocus Media thanks you. The student population thanks you. And the optometry profession thanks you, because we know you're out on Capitol Hill today, making a difference, taking students with you, having conversations, and protecting our rights and helping us to expand our scope. So continue the great work. Thanks so much for tuning in. Dr. Aaron put up there that our next event is April 29th. We have 2 more events. Make sure you bring your friends along. We really appreciate y'all. It looks like you got a lot of love here, Jacqueline. I'm just showing all these congrats. Yay, we got our winners in the building. Congrats. Thank you. Yay, thank you, folks, for present so they can get their gifts. I love it. All right, my friends, until next time, stay healthy, stay positive, stay blessed. Peace. Hey, family, if you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.